Old friends Alex DeBrincat and Patrick Kane run wild against the Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, as always, just a reminder to please go and hit that like button. Jump in the comment section down below with your reaction to the Blackhawks' 4-1 loss to the Red Wings last night. And most importantly, be sure to subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Thank you very much. Got to let you all know as well that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. If you're not already a member, go and visit FanDuel.com right now to have a chance to win $150 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet cashes with America's #1 sportsbook. All right, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. I hope everyone's Thursday morning is off to a wonderful start. Tough one for our Blackhawks last night as they were unable to keep the momentum going that they generated over the weekend with back-to-back wins and fall short of their goal of winning 3 consecutive games for the first time since February 2023. That's right, Blackhawks fans. Been nearly 2 years since this team won 3 games in a row. A huge opportunity for them to accomplish that goal last night, but unfortunately, a pretty lackadaisical performance out of the home squad as they wind up losing 4-1 to Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, and the Detroit Red Wings at the United Center. And this was a pretty disappointing loss for the Blackhawks for multiple different reasons. One, obviously, it would have been nice to get the last laugh over 2 familiar friends in Kaner and Alex DeBrincat, as Patrick Kane, of course, notched the infamous overtime winner with a beautiful call from the Red Wings broadcast, might I add. In his first game back to the UC, Alex DeBrincat scored in that game as well. Would have been nice to get the last laugh against those guys and get this victory on home ice. But of course, not only did the Blackhawks not win the game, but to also watch number 88 have a really strong night. Alex DeBrincat wind up with 2 points and scored a goal again. To watch them be the true difference makers for the Red Wings was definitely a bit of a tough pill to swallow. 2, this marked the 4th consecutive loss for the Blackhawks on home ice since their home opening win against the San Jose Sharks. There hasn't been a lot of games at the UC early on in the year. The Blackhawks have been on the road a ton, and that's going to actually work in their favor down the road as they'll have a ton of home games, I believe, in December, January, and March. They're filled with home games, but they've spent a lot of time on the road thus far, and when they have been at home, they haven't been able to use the crowd to their advantage. And last night, the Blackhawks had their first sellout of the season. It was undoubtedly the most filled the United Center had been. And for them to not only lose this game, but put out the effort that they did and fall again for the 4th time in a row on home ice, it's unacceptable. And for a team that wants to take a step in the right direction this season, you certainly got to be better on home ice. You got to take advantage of that home crowd, and the Blackhawks just didn't give enough reasons for the fans to be chanting Detroit sucks last night. So that was certainly disappointing. 3, the offense went ice cold for the Hawks. Connor Bedard, obviously, he's the one that everyone points to when the Blackhawks offense isn't clicking or rolling on all cylinders, and it was another pretty quiet night for 98. He did finish with 4 shots on goal, which was second among Blackhawks forwards, and the analytics were fine in terms of the possession numbers, but it felt like that line just really couldn't get any legitimate high-danger scoring chances, and Bedard was held off of the stat sheet for the 4th time in the last 5 games, so a little mini slump for him. It was frustrating. He seemed frustrated out there on the ice, took a penalty against Patrick Kane last night. Really think we got to get him some better puck carriers on that line if possible to help take some of the weight off of his shoulder. But yeah, the Blackhawks offense was stymied pretty much all night long. I got to give a lot of credit to the Simone Edvinsson, Mo Seider top pairing for the Red Wings. The 2 most notable defensemen for them were solid all game long. Blackhawks top line really didn't have any answers. The second line for the Blackhawks, though, undoubtedly was their most effective trio, spent a lot of good time in the offensive zone and felt like they got the better of the Red Wings second line all night long. Nick Foligno cashed in for the Blackhawks, lone goal of the game, his 5th of the season, second in the last 3 games, after a beautiful play by Tyler Bertuzzi. Beautiful sequence out of Bertuzzi. That is exactly what the Blackhawks have been missing out of their top 6 forward group for far too long, and a perfect example of what we need Tyler Bertuzzi to do more consistently. Absolutely bodies Ben Sherratt down low behind the Red Wings, down below behind the Red Wings net, wins a board battle, basically gives him like a Heisman stiff arm in a board battle, spins off of that, puts his head up and sees Nick Foligno is cutting to the net backdoor, throws a beautiful tape-to-tape cross-ice pass. Nick Foligno is able to jam home his own rebound for his 5th goal of the year. That now gives Tyler Bertuzzi 3 points over his past 4 games, so nice to see him starting to wake up, but unfortunately, that was all the offense the Blackhawks could muster up on the night. And then 4th, last but certainly not least, of course, the Blackhawks' failure to win arguably their most important and biggest game of the year on home ice was certainly disappointing. To extend their winning streak to 3 games, I mentioned they hadn't won 3 games in a row since February 2023. That was, 21 months ago now? It's been a long time. So for the Blackhawks to lose that opportunity to get, I don't want to say manhandled, but it was just a very lackadaisical effort, and they missed out on an opportunity to get closer back to that 500 plateau. Instead, they're now back down to 5-8-1, lost 9 of their opening 14 games, and things aren't going to be getting any easier as they have a back end of a back-to-back tonight after jumping on the bird and flying to Dallas to take on one of the better teams in the Central Division in the Stars. We'll have a preview of tonight's matchup on segment 3, so be sure to stay tuned until that. As far as what went wrong for the Blackhawks, though, first and foremost, the Hawks let the Red Wing Stars run wild, and that was my number 1 key to victory that I touched on in my preview episode. I anticipated that Kane, Larkin, DeBrincat, that trio had been the primary offensive drivers for this Red Wings offense, and the broadcast on TNT even mentioned last night their struggles in scoring goals at even strength, and I said if the Hawks can hold this trio to just 1 goal. I fully expected them to get 1. Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat at the UC. I mean, come on, I've seen this story too many times. I knew they were going to wind up on the stat sheet with at least 1 goal. But I said if the Blackhawks could limit them to 1 and done, don't let them have multi-point games, I think that's going to go a long way in terms of the Hawks' chances to victory, because I don't believe in the Red Wings secondary scoring can do enough to get the job done. Well, Alex DeBrincat went on to have 2 points, a goal, and an assist. Dylan Larkin might have been the best player for the Red Wings. Beautiful display of his speed, blowing past poor Isaac Phillips, who was going for a change there. Tyler Bertuzzi wasn't able to get the puck deep. Next thing he knows, he's having to backpedal and keep up with one of the fastest skaters in the NHL in Dylan Larkin. Larkin, the captain, winds up with a goal and an assist for 2 points. Patrick Kane didn't technically wind up on the stat sheet, which I know frustrated a lot of gamblers on this game. A lot of people bet on Patrick Kane to get at least 1 point. He technically didn't. 0 points on the stat sheet. However, he made a beautiful outlet pass to spring Dylan Larkin for the Red Wings' opening goal of the game, scored by Alex DeBrincat, which, by the way, came with 1.5 seconds left in the first period. A pretty sharp opening 20 minutes for the Blackhawks. They didn't give up a lot of high-danger opportunities until there were 1.5 seconds left. So for them to go into that first intermission trailing after it seemed like it was going to be evened up at 0-0, that was super deflating, and the Hawks didn't have a lot of mojo the rest of the way. But yeah, Patrick Kane certainly made his presence felt out there last night. That trio spent a ton of time in the offensive zone. The Blackhawks really didn't have any answers for them whatsoever, and Patrick Kane was doing his thing, making heads-up reads, taking advantage of the open ice out there, and I thought the Blackhawks really struggled with the spacing, the puck movement, and the player movement whenever that trio was on the ice. And then I referenced, too, Simone Edvinsson, Mo Seider on the back end. The Blackhawks couldn't solve the big dogs on the blue line for the Red Wings. Edvinsson and Seider were on the ice for 3 goals for to 0 against at even strength, while also having a 9-3 advantage in scoring chances and 6-1 advantage in high danger chances. And again, that duo was out there a lot against Connor Bedard in the Blackhawks top line. Second thing that went wrong for the Blackhawks last night was it was as sloppy as a defensive performance as we've seen so far this year. I feel like it was pretty certain. I feel pretty certain, that this was the most odd man rushes and high danger chances, primetime scoring opportunities the Blackhawks defense has surrendered in a game this year. Was not a really good showing for them in their own end. In a rare, real tough night for Alex Vlasic. I feel like I might have jinxed him with some of the content that I was putting out. Alex Vlasic had to have one of the worst analytical nights of his young career. Was on the ice for 13 shot attempts for to 25 against. 4 shots on goal for to 11 against, 3 scoring chances for to 14 against, and 1 high danger chance for to 8 against, while also being on the ice for 1 goal for to 3 against at even strength. And he was out there for the Red Wings empty netter. So Alex Vlasic on the ice for all 4 goals against, had an expected goals for percentage of 20.43, one of the lowest on the Blackhawks. And when your best defensive defenseman struggles like that, it's probably going to be a tough night for the Hawks D as a whole, especially considering aside from Vlasic, they also have 3 other players, 23 years old or younger, currently skating on their blue line. And third and final, what went wrong for the Blackhawks last night was they had no third period desperation. This game was in the balance with 20 minutes to go. Yes, the Blackhawks were down 2-1, but they were right there, and it felt like it was a pretty evenly matched game through 20 minutes. And we have seen the Blackhawks have multiple third period comebacks so far this year. Of course, one of them being the huge comeback that they had against the Los Angeles Kings over the weekend. But the Hawks seemed absolutely flat in that final frame. I tweeted out that they had no juice, no momentum, weren't really able to get anything going. And for them to lose the scoring chance battle 11-2 at even strength in the final period, and also the high danger chance battle 4-0. Yeah, I think that pretty much encapsulates the type of lackluster effort it was from the Blackhawks offense last night. Just didn't have any juice, didn't have any firepower, couldn't get it going when they needed to have a lot of desperation. And again, that's super disappointing considering it was an opportunity for them to win a third consecutive game. After building some momentum over the weekend, they return home, a chance to get the crowd back into it, get closer to 500, pick up a big 2 points at the UC, which they hadn't done since their home opener, and it was all for naught as they wind up letting Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Larkin, and the Red Wings studs run wild at the United Center in a 4-1 victory for Detroit. All right, there are my quick takeaways from the Blackhawks' loss last night to the Red Wings. Coming up in just a moment, I'll take a look back at my 3 keys to victory that I laid out and also get into some honorable mention strong performances from the Blackhawks last night. But first, real quick, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action in the second half of the regular season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and have the chance to win $150 worth of bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app now gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So that way, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can go and check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you also happen to place your bets. And it's been a tough couple of weeks for our Chicago Bears. Obviously, a heartbreaker of all heartbreakers against the Commanders, followed up by a dreadful performance in the desert, losing to the Arizona Cardinals. However, it feels like there's a good chance that the Bears bounce back this week against the New England Patriots. And if you're feeling the same way that I do, be sure to go and check out FanDuel.com to go and throw some money down on the Bears, because if you're not already a member, it won't cost you anything to sign up. And also, you'll have a chance to win $150 worth of bonus bets if your first $5 bet only got to throw $5 down. And if that cashes, you win $150 worth of bonus bets. So be sure to go and check out FanDuel.com right now. And again, only $5 down. If that bet wins, you'll get blessed with $150 worth of bonus bets. So don't Waste any hunches that you get in the middle of the game and make your first $5 bet count by visiting FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. I also got to talk to you all real quick about Game Time. Hockey season is officially back, and I couldn't feel better to get back down to the United Center, hearing Chelsea Dagger, grabbing a cold beverage, and enjoying the atmosphere at the Madhouse. And I'm sure many of you Blackhawks fans listening or watching to this right now have that same itch that I had before the start of the season to get back down to the UC, and that's why I'm here to talk to you all about Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature that they've created called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to your favorite live events, not just hockey games, even easier. And FanDuel has always been the cheapest and easiest way for me to purchase my tickets. I've been using, Game Time. I have been using Game Time to purchase my tickets. It's the fastest and easiest way for you to purchase your tickets. And this is seriously not part of the ad read. I've been using Game Time since well before I was the host of Locked On Blackhawks. Whether I'm trying to go to Blackhawks games at the UC, go to see Cubs games down at Wrigley Field, or even if I'm traveling in any city and want to go see a ball game or go and watch a comedy event with one of my friends or go and see a concert, I always make sure to check Game Time first because it's the fastest, cheapest, and easiest way for you to purchase your tickets. Plus, they have last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, and zone deals that make it so easy to find and buy tickets now that hockey season has officially taken over. So I highly recommend you all go and download the Game Time app, and when you do, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps to get $20 off with your first deposit. You can get $20 off to come and see Connor Bedard at the UC this year. All you got to do, download Game Time, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in all caps. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Game Time. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you to everyone for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen. Now for your second listen of the day, make sure to go and check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast so that you can become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. And you can easily find the link to Locked On Fantasy Hockey down in the description of this video, or simply search on YouTube and wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Segment 2, per usual, following a Blackhawks game, going to quickly take a look back at my 3 keys to victory that I laid out in yesterday's preview episode. And a reminder as well, Blackhawks fans, we'll be having a preview of tonight's matchup with the Dallas Stars in segment 3 of today's show, so be sure to stick around until that point of the episode. My number 1 key to victory for the Blackhawks, I already kind of touched on in the opening segment, but it was to not let the frenemies run wild. And I said if Detroit gets multi-point performances from their top line, it's going to be hard for this Blackhawks offense to match that. Well, the top trio for the Red Wings, DeBrincat, Kane, and Larkin, were absolutely dominant every time they were out there on the ice at 5-on-5. The Blackhawks didn't have any answers. Here were the numbers in favor of the Wings at even strength when that top line was on the ice. They had a 19-8 shot attempts advantage, an 8-3 shots on goal advantage, an 11-2 scoring chance advantage, 6-0 high danger chance advantage, while having a 92.x2 expected goals for percentage. A reminder, that only goes up to 100, while also being on the ice for 2 goals for to 0 against. Larkin and DeBrincat each wound up with 2 points. That's what's going to happen when you play with fire, Blackhawks fans, and it feels like not only did they allow that type of production from these guys, but they also didn't have a response for their puck movement in the offensive zone, and it felt like they gave them way too much space to work with. Quite honestly, this trio probably could have combined for 3 or 4 goals last night with the opportunities that they had and the amount of space that the Blackhawks blue line and forwards let them get away with. My second key to victory for the Blackhawks was to carry over the power play momentum that they generated in their prior game against the Anaheim Ducks, in which they went 2 for 2, and that ultimately wound up making the difference in their 2-goal victory out on the West Coast to wrap up their 5-game road trip. And Detroit had one of the worst penalty kills in the NHL coming into this game, 29th out of 32 teams. I said the Blackhawks had to make Detroit pay for their penalties, and they did literally the exact opposite. 2 of the worst man advantages that I've seen from the Blackhawks this year, which is saying something because even though they're in the top half of the league, it feels like it's either a converted goal for the Blackhawks or they get absolutely nothing set up whatsoever. And they had 2 power plays last night where they got absolutely nothing set up whatsoever. Really struggled to get into the offensive zone. Seth Jones actually wound up being the leading game score impact chart player for the Blackhawks in this game. I did not think he had a good night in the offensive zone and on the power play, most importantly. Like, his zone entries were awful, forcing the drop passes, his reads, inability, like when he goes and dumps the puck, not getting it all the way in, not able to chase it and go and retrieve it. Real tough night for Seth Jones on the man advantage. And when he struggles in the offensive areas, Alex Vlasic struggles in the defensive areas, and the Blackhawks have 3 other, 22, 23-year-old players or younger on the blue line. It's going to be a tough night for the Hawks defense, but super disappointing to see the power play have this lackadaisical of a night. I mean, Detroit certainly had the better opportunities while the Blackhawks were on their man advantage. I think they might have had 3 odd man rushes while being shorthanded. Not a good night for the Blackhawks power play, not a good night for the Blackhawks defense. My third and final key that I laid out for the Hawks was to get the mojo back, because despite getting a pair of wins over the weekend, the Hawks did not play their best games and were heavily outshot, heavily outpossessed, and even though that led to 4 points in 2 games, that wasn't the style of play that they could consistently rack up victories with. So I thought it was important for them to return home and kind of get back to the style of play we saw in the first 6 or 7 games of the year. Even though that didn't lead to a winning record at the time, felt like the Blackhawks were due for better results if they played that style, shut down D, outpossess the other team, work hard in the offensive zone to win battles, and then be tenacious on the forecheck. Well, they didn't do enough of that last night, and as I mentioned, they had an opportunity to get their mojo back in the third period and got absolutely diced, didn't have enough late game desperation, and the lack of a 60-minute effort is still really killing this Blackhawks team. Even in their wins, right? Like, we haven't really seen a full 60-minute effort, and you need to have those to win in this league. Hearing the TNT crew talk about it last night, like, yeah, there are obviously teams like the Blackhawks out there and the San Jose Sharks and these rebuilding clubs, but you still got to put your best effort forward every night to win in this league. It's a very tough league to win in, a very hard league to be good in, and you got to have full 60-minute efforts in order to win, and the Blackhawks just haven't done enough of that this year, and I don't even know if they had a 20 or 30-minute effort last night against the Red Wings, which, again, disappointing with a packed United Center, a ton of Blackhawks faithful in attendance, and they didn't give them a lot to cheer about, so pretty disappointing that none of these 3 keys went well for the Blackhawks in their return home. There were some honorable mentions I did want to be sure to shout out here on the podcast, because it wasn't entirely awful performances from each and every Blackhawks individual player. I mentioned Tyler Bertuzzi, 3 points in his last 4 games. He and that second line were probably the most effective trio of players for the Blackhawks in this game. Connor Murphy, I thought, was pretty solid once again on the back end. Not only did he tally an assist, but he also added 3 blocks and 2 hits in 20 minutes and 19 seconds of time on ice. The defensive consistency has been better here for the most part out of Murphy. Even though it wasn't his best night last night with Alex Vlasic, I still didn't think he was a complete donut or pylon back there in the defensive zone, and wound up impacting the game on the offensive side of things once again. Picked up his 7th assist of the season. How about that? Connor Murphy, 7 assists through 14 games. Alex Vlasic, 7 assists through 14 games. They're getting good puck movement out of those two on the back end with one another. Ryan Donato, unfortunately, had his 5-game point streak snapped last night, but he did lead all Hawks forwards with 5 shots on goal in 15 minutes and 40 seconds of time on ice. I thought his aggressiveness was noticeable last night, and he just has that desire to go to the dirty areas, put the puck on net, and try to win a battle. And hey, it's been working for the guy so far this year as the Blackhawks' leading goal scorer, despite being healthy scratched in 2 of their 14 games. And I also did want to be sure to give a little hat tip to Wyatt Kaiser, as he was 3rd for the Blackhawks in the game score impact chart last night. I thought he had a strong game, made some really strong plays with his stick, a lot of heads-up reads, and the analytics were really solid. He was on the ice for 11 shots on goal for to only 4 against, had an 8-5 advantage in scoring chances, 3-0 advantage in high danger chances, was on the ice for the lone Blackhawks goal and wasn't out there for any against, obviously, since Alex Vlasic was out there for all four of them, but had the second best expected goals for percentage at even strength for the Blackhawks last night at 69.00. Very nice, Wyatt Kaiser. But again, he just continues to look more composed, more confident in his abilities. He's still a little bit undersized, and that's going to hurt him in some situations, but it feels like his awareness is a lot better. His game recognition altogether has taken a leap so far this year. And that's, again, when I talk about whenever Alec Martinez is able to return to the Hawks blue line, I think it's undoubtedly Nolan Allen, the one who's going back to Rockford. I think Isaac Phillips is in a good spot to remain as the seventh defenseman, and Wyatt Kaiser has just been the better of the two defensemen, which he's a year advanced in his pro development than Nolan Allen. No harm, no foul there. But I do think Wyatt Kaiser has been much better so far in the early stages of this season than he was when he kind of looked like a fish out of water last year in his first full NHL campaign. All right, there is everything that I wanted to get to from the Blackhawks. 4-1 loss to the Red Wings last night. Coming up in just a moment before I tie a bow on today's show, I still have to get into a preview of tonight's matchup with the Dallas Stars. Real quick, though, I do need to let you all know about the fine folks over at Indeed. We're all driven by the search for better in this world, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, but match with Indeed. And if you need to hire, then you need Indeed, because Indeed is the best matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates in an instant. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employees agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And one of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so simple and so easy, because you can skip out on the countless job sites that ask unnecessary information and unnecessary questions and still doesn't wind up leading you anywhere. Instead, go and join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that currently use Indeed to hire quick talent fast. And listeners and viewers of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility when you check out Indeed.com/lockedon. Again, that's Indeed.com/lockedon to get a $75 sponsored job credit that'll get your jobs more visibility. Need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Segment 3, the beat don't skip here for the Blackhawks as they are back in action tonight after hopping on the bird for their back end of their midweek back-to-back, facing off with the Dallas Stars here this evening for the second time in the past 12 days. The first meeting, of course, was the first game on the Hawks' 5-game road trip that resulted in a 4-2 win for the Stars. The Blackhawks were plagued by a pretty sleepy opening 40, opening 50 minutes. I don't know. It took them a while to wake up in this game, and when they did, they found themselves trailing 3-0, but put together a late run to make things interesting as they got goals from Ryan Donato and Connor Bedard, but weren't able to claw their way back, all the way back, as Matt Duchene went on to add the empty netter and lift the Stars to a 4-2 victory at home. Since then, the Blackhawks have played 5 games. They have been trending in the right direction as they're 3-2-0 for the Dallas Stars. Believe it or not, in their past 12 days since that first meeting between these two teams, the Dallas Stars have only played 2 games, and that's because they were over in Finland in that back-to-back home-and-home series, taking on the Florida Panthers, which wound up leading to 2 victories for the Florida Panthers. So 0-2-0 for the Dallas Stars since the last meeting between these Central Division foes, but obviously there's a little bit of asterisk and a little bit of a grain of salt that you kind of got to keep in mind when thinking about that. But Dallas, one of the better teams in the Central Division. They were 7-2-0 prior to that trip to Finland, now 7-4-0 through their opening 11 games. Looking at some of the team numbers on the year, 16th on the man advantage, so right around the middle of the pack, just like the Blackhawks are. But defensively, this is where the Stars shine. One of the best defensive teams in all of the NHL. Even though their blue line looks a little bit different this year, that still has remained a strength of theirs. And that's been a reason that I've backed the Dallas Stars in the last couple of years in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think I had them maybe I had them winning the cup last year. I think I've had them winning the cup in 2 of the last 3 years because I really like their defense. I love Jake Ottinger. They kind of shook things up on the blue line, though, this year, so I wasn't as confident in the Stars as I've been these last couple of years. But they've picked up right where they've left off. 4th in the NHL on the PK, 3rd in the NHL in goals against per game. Jake Ottinger has gotten off to a really good start. And then middle of the pack offensively is Dallas, 16th in the NHL as well in goals per game. As far as their offensive play drivers, who the Blackhawks need to be keeping an eye on tonight, Matt Duchene, after re-inking a deal with Dallas to remain there for this season, he has gotten off to a blazing hot start with 15 points in his opening 11 games, 7 goals and 8 assists to be the leading point scorer. Logan Stankoven is actually the second leading scorer for Dallas with 10 points, 1 goal and 9 assists through 11 games. But Mason Marchment, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Tyler Seguin all have at least 7 points on the year. A lot of good depth scoring for this Dallas Stars team. And when you go and look at their forward group, it's like they got 3 real forward lines of offensive firepower. Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and Evgeny Dadonov figure to be the top line here tonight. The second line is Sam Steele, Matt Duchene centering. As I mentioned, he is their leading point scorer with Tyler Seguin on the right wing. And then the third line for the Stars is Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, and Logan Stankoven. So a lot of talent in this top 9 forward group. And then they round things out up front with Oscar Back, Maverick Bourque, was Maverick Bourque a first-round pick? Man, I remember researching him years ago. I can't remember if he went in the first. I think he did. Might have been a high second-round selection. Regardless, he's slated to center the fourth line for the Stars tonight. And then Blackhawks legend Colin Blackwell looks like he's going to be in the lineup playing the right wing spot down on the fourth line. As far as the blue line goes for the Stars, Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen figure to be the top pairing, with Heiskanen playing on his offside, which, man, is that guy so skilled. One of my favorite players in the NHL. Asa Lindell and Ilya Labushkin, one of the players they brought in on their blue line, are going to be the second pairing, while Brendan Smith and Matt Dumba, 2 veterans on the back end, round things out on the third pairing. And with the Dallas Stars having 5 consecutive off days, I absolutely figure it's going to be Jake Ottinger getting the start in net. As far as what we figure to see out of the Blackhawks lineup, I don't know if we're going to see any changes to the forward group, even though it was kind of a sleepy performance. My estimate, Blackhawks fans, is we're going to see the same top 6 forward lines for yet another game here. But if things don't work, I think Luke Richardson is going to hit the blender before the Blackhawks return home against the Minnesota Wild on Sunday. I figure it's going to be Kurashev, Bedard, and Donato, with Hall, Foligno, and Bertuzzi getting another look after they had some good puck movement with one another against Detroit. Ilya Mikheyev, Jason Dickinson, and Teuvo Teravainen as the third line. I'll tell you what, though. Teuvo Teravainen has been pretty much a ghost over the last couple of weeks. Outside the goal that he scored against Anaheim on Sunday, I'm pretty sure he doesn't have a point in 8 of his last 9 games now. Total ghost performance last night, and was not only, obviously he's been bumped off of the top line for the Blackhawks, he was removed from the top power play unit as well. So seems like Teravainen could kind of be in Luke Richardson's doghouse right now. And I also wonder if Luke Richardson is considering getting Joey Anderson back in for Ilya Mikheyev. Mikheyev does provide some good speed, but he literally doesn't offer anything offensively. And defensively, I feel like Joey Anderson can slide in that spot with Jason Dickinson and do just as good of a job personally. I wonder if Richardson is thinking of sending a little bit of a wake-up call to Mikheyev, or maybe even Teuvo Teravainen. I doubt it, because this team needs firepower. I don't think they can afford to scratch Teuvo Teravainen, but wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. I think there is a chance Joey Anderson could possibly get back in tonight. And then with the fourth line, I know Reichel, Smith, and Maroon has worked really well, but this Blackhawks team is just so clearly missing speed in their lineup right now. I wonder if Andreas Athanasiou could get back in for the first time since the Hawks played the Vancouver Canucks a couple of weeks ago. They just really need speed, and I think Reichel needs to play with someone with a little bit more speed. I know it's kind of a tough situation in terms of who you got to pull out and who you got to, put in, but I think the Hawks could use a little bit of a shakeup here. Even though they've won 3 of their last 5, I think they clearly need some speed in this offense right now. So we'll see if AA or Joey Anderson wind up drawing in. My expectation, though, is for the Blackhawks to roll with the same 4 forward lines as we saw last night. On the blue line, I expect Wyatt Kaiser and Seth Jones to remain with one another. As I mentioned, Kaiser with a strong game last night. Alex Vlasic and Connor Murphy, I think, are going to remain as the second pairing. I do anticipate TJ Brodie draws in for the back end of this back-to-back. Given that he's been out for 3 games in a row, he's going to have some fresh legs. That's going to be needed against a Dallas team that hasn't played in the last 5 days. I anticipate that Isaac Phillips is probably going to draw out, and then that would go back to the Allen Brodie pairing that we saw for a couple of games there on the third pairing. And then don't forget, Arvid Soderblom is going to be going in net tonight looking for a second consecutive victory, which he has not been able to do so far in his NHL career. But it's been a pretty solid first 3 starts to the season for Arvid Soderblom. Could possibly be his last start up at the NHL level before Laurent Brossoit returns, so hopefully he ends it with a little bit of a bang. As far as the best bet for the Blackhawks tonight, I did go and look at the lines courtesy of the fine folks over at FanDuel. Heavily favored are the Dallas Stars since they haven't played in 5 days. The Blackhawks are the team that's going to have some tired legs. Stars are minus 350 on the money line, while the Hawks are plus 275. Minus 1.5 for Dallas is minus 134. Plus 1.5 for the Hawks is plus 110, which I think is pretty good value there. Over 6.5 plus 106. Under 6.5 minus 130 is the favorite. Looking at some of the past results between these two teams, hasn't been very good for the Blackhawks, which is the case against most Central Division teams. Hawks are just 2-7-2 over their past 11 contests with Dallas since the start of 2022. And if you're thinking of betting on the over-under, over 6.5 is hit in 6 of those last 11 meetings. As far as the goal scorers that are listed right now, it's mostly all Dallas Stars. Jason Robertson's the favorite at plus 140. Rupe Hintz next at 155, Seguin at plus 185, Duchesne plus 190, Johnston plus 220, Connor Bedard, the first Blackhawk, comes in at plus 250, Jamie Benz plus 250, Stankovens plus 270, Marchment plus 280, Bertuzzi plus 380, Dadonov plus 390, and Teuvo Teravainen plus 400. Last thing I want to leave you with before I close things off, the parlays or the plays that have been working that I've been laying here on the show have been working nicely over these last few games. Ryan Donato, 2+ shots on goal last night, parlayed with Alex DeBrincat, 1 or more point, plus 124. Cashed in the opening 24 minutes of the game. Hopefully can keep this momentum rolling here on the show, and hopefully some of you are tailing and making some money on this. It's really fun. I enjoyed doing this segment. My plays tonight for the Blackhawks, I'm going Tyler Bertuzzi, anytime goal scorer, plus 380. I think is great value, a guy who's gotten his mojo back these last few games. 3 points in his last 4. Give me Tyler Bertuzzi, anytime goal scorer tonight. My parlay, I'm sticking with Ryan Donato. I think he's going to be on the top line once again, so I'm going Donato, 3+ shots on goal, parlayed with a Rupe Hintz point. That comes out to plus 305, Blackhawks fans. Either of those hit, we're making pretty good money on the night. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and show me some love if you want at Jack Bushman too, but be sure to follow my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, everyone, go Hawks. Let's hope they can get a big 2 points here tonight on the road, which feels like it's going to be a difficult task. But until tomorrow's episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your days. I'll see you next time on Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.